This is an interesting and counterintuitive way to drive safely that involves looking as far ahead along the road that you're driving that you can possibly see. If you do that, then your peripheral vision will take care of the micro changes that are involved in keeping your lane position. And yet, because you're looking so far ahead, you've got the proper perspective to keep those micro changes in line with where the vehicle is ultimately going. Again, counterintuitive sort of advice, but it works. And it's also a metaphor for the way we can live our lives faithfully and filled with love and compassion and in the way that God created us to live. Here's what I'm talking about. If you were to look too far ahead and always be thinking about those lofty goals like love one another, love everybody, peace on earth, goodwill. If you look too far ahead, then it can sometimes be you can be blind to the day-to-day kinds of frictions and challenges and barriers that have to be navigated. And those lofty goals can seem impossible to reach. But of course, if you look too closely, there's an old saw in bicycle riding safety that says if there's a pothole ahead, if you see a pothole ahead, don't look at it, because you tend to steer towards that pothole. And I've neglected that rule to to my pain before. And that can happen too in our lives, in our interpersonal relationships. We get too focused on a problem. We get too focused on an issue that we have with somebody, and that focus makes the problem worse and prevents us from moving past that friction and that barrier that we have with someone with whom we may have a very close relationship or friendship, maybe even part of our family. Again, I'm Gordy-Stith, be preaching this Sunday, and I invite you to gather together with me around this passage from Matthew 6 that we'll be focused on. You've probably heard it before. Consider the lilies of the field, how they neither toil nor spin, and yet they are Solomon in all his glory can't even compare. And if God cares about them so much that are thrown in the fire tomorrow and here today, then how much more will God provide for you? So keeping that in perspective and taking not necessarily the longest view, but a view in perspective that keeps